Fear is a vital survival skill. The body begins to act immediately to a threat before it is even consciously aware of what the threat might be. When an animal or humans are faced with danger, milliseconds count, and immediately the most remarkable chain of events begin. This is known as the fight, flight, or freeze response. The fight, flight, or freeze response is not only limited to humans. Animals experience life-threatening situations as well as fear or acute stress just as intensely as humans do.
Imagine somebody having to respond to a life or death situation in an instant. In a matter of seconds, the brain decides if the threat is something that might be successfully fought off or something to run away from. At this moment, when the fight, flight, or freeze response kicks in, a number of physical changes automatically takes place in the body.
The physiological reaction of animals to perceived danger does not differ from humans during the fight, flight, or freeze response. The same physiological chain of events as in humans is triggered. This includes increased heart rate, respiration depth, increased blood flow to the skeletal muscles, increased body temperature, elevation of blood sugar, and reduced blood flow to the digestive organs. Any mild sensory stimuli will alert animals, whether it's to sight, sound, smell, or even ground vibrations, and they will get ready to spring into action. These responses kick in within as little as 1/20th of a second. This is shorter than the time between two heartbeats.
Even though the flight or flight response is an automatic one, it isn't always accurate. In fact, most of the time when this response is triggered, it is a false alarm. There is no actual threat to survival, either real or perceived.
Animals respond to threats in many complex ways and do not always respond with an immediate fight or flight response. Instead, certain behavior from other animals could lead to a specific flight, fight, or freeze response. This may include responses such as raised hair, immobility, vocalization, and change in body posture. Males and females tend to deal with threatening situations differently. Males are more likely to respond to an emergency situation with aggression and a fight than do females.
Sometimes the perceived threat is so intense it triggers a freeze response. And this could be interpreted as the brain being overwhelmed by the threat, or it could also be an adaptive, positive response to a threat.
Remarkably, during the playing dead response in animals, some of the physical changes are set into reverse order from what happens during fight or flight. Heart and respiratory rate, as well as body temperature, are reduced instead of increased. Some animals, like deer fawns, can stop breathing for a few minutes. Under certain conditions, many animals appear to faint or fake death. The opossum is a typical example of an animal that has mastered the art of faking death.
The question is, wouldn't it be better to immediately get a head start and dash away from the potential danger? The answer is actually no. In the wild, many predators react to movement, and if the animal abruptly goes rigid, there's a chance that the predator won't notice it. Think of freezing as a state of defense preparation. The body gets the same boost of adrenaline that readies it for fighting or fleeing, but the brain has calculated that at least for that moment, the best odds of survival come from taking no action at all. For humans, the freeze response occurs more as a last resort when they are totally overwhelmed with fear or feel like there is no chance for survival or escape.
For the sake of comparing human and animal behavioral responses, it is more practical to use the human anatomy as an illustrative tool. Note that the same physiological chains of reaction in both animals and humans are triggered.
The instant a threat is perceived, the vision narrows, also known as tunnel vision. The pupils dilate, allowing the eyes to gather more light, to improve sight, and to concentrate on the perceived threat. This in turn helps the body to respond faster to danger. At the same time, the ability to hear also increases and becomes much more sensitive and louder. During a threatening situation, the perceived threatening image is sent to the brain via the optic nerve and processed in the emotion center called the amygdala. The amygdala receives inputs from senses like vision or hearing and also controls emotional behavior. After processing the information, the amygdala then triggers a neural response in the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus then transmits a signal to the pituitary gland to release a hormone called ACTH into the bloodstream. Additionally, the hypothalamus sends neural signals via the spinal sympathetic nerves to the muscles to prepare for action. At the same time, nerve signals are sent directly from the hypothalamus down the spinal cord to the adrenal glands near the kidneys. Here, they stimulate the adrenal medulla in the center of the adrenal gland to release adrenaline, also known as epinephrine. Adrenaline now flows through the body via the bloodstream to different organs to fire them up, and in a split second cause a number of processes to ready the body for action. Adrenaline reaches the lungs and instantly increases the breathing rate to adapt to the action needed. Breathing becomes deeper and more oxygen is taken in and circulated within the blood. This results in the smooth muscles in the bronchioli to relax, allowing for better oxygen uptake. However, overreaction may result in hyperventilation, which is the cause of many other anxiety symptoms such as chest pains, lightheadedness, and difficulty in breathing. Adrenaline also causes the heart rate to increase. Oxygen-rich blood is now delivered to the larger skeletal muscles which are waiting for the signal to flee or fight. The blood is diverted from organs or areas of the body not needed for fight or flight, such as the fingers and hands. Veins in the skin constrict to send more blood to major muscle groups. This action is responsible for the chill feeling sometimes associated with fear, as less blood reaches the skin to keep it warm. When adrenaline reaches the liver releases glycogen, thus increasing the blood glucose, which becomes the energy supply for the body to react in full force. The high levels of glucose release will also cause the body to shake. Because of the body feeling stressed, sweating also occurs to make sure it stays cool in order to prepare for action. The muscles in the body tense up, energized by adrenaline and glucose. The tiny muscles attached to each hair on the surface of the skin also tense up. The hairs are forced upright, pulling the skin with them. Larger skeletal muscles automatically receive more oxygenated blood. Smooth muscles which are responsible for the contraction, for example, blood vessels and the intestinal tract or bladder, relax in order to allow more oxygen into the lungs. When adrenaline reaches the digestive system, it shuts down digestion as smooth muscles relax and blood flow is decreased. Gastric juices and saliva production is also decreased. The bladder will also relax as these systems are not considered as important for your physical resources. Think of it as a priority system. It's more important to live now than to digest food. With all these mechanisms in place, the body is now fully powered and ready to spring into action.
This whole phenomenon of interactions takes place in the body even before our conscious mind has registered the threat. The fight or flight response in particular is an instinct that every animal and human possesses.
It is intended to help survive a dangerous situation by preparing the body to fight, flee, or freeze.
The body again.